On the distant planet of Zarinth, the air was thick with tension. The war between the Zarinthians and the invaders had raged for months. Their enemies were ruthless, well-equipped, and relentless. After a brutal battle, the Zarinthians were facing their greatest loss. The alien princess Alara was dying. Alara, the crown princess, had led her people in the fight for their freedom. She was strong, fearless, and loved by everyone. But during this latest battle, her ship was struck, and her life was hanging by a thread. The healers worked desperately to save her, but nothing seemed to work. The princess was slowly slipping away. The royal palace, once full of life, was now eerily silent. Her father, King Torith, paced nervously in his chambers, praying for a miracle. His daughter, his only heir, was fading. The healers tried every known treatment, but none had worked. The royal physicians whispered among themselves, hoping for anything that could save her. But it seemed hopeless. Far away, in a distant galaxy, a human warrior was preparing for a mission. He was part of a peacekeeping force, a small but elite team that traveled across the stars, helping civilizations in need. His name was Jace, and though he had been trained in combat, his heart was not filled with violence. He believed in peace. And that belief had brought him to Zarinth. Jace had arrived on Zarinth by chance, sent to assist with negotiations between the Zarinthian people and their allies. However, the war had escalated far beyond what anyone had expected. As he stepped off his ship, he could feel the tension in the air. The peaceful planet had become a battlefield. The news of the princess's condition reached Jace quickly. Had heard of her bravery, her leadership, and her fierce loyalty to her people. She was known throughout the galaxy as someone who would never back down from a fight. But now, the strongest of warriors was lying helpless in a bed, her body too, weak to survive the battle she had fought. Without hesitation, Jace approached the royal palace. He had no idea what he could do, but he knew that he couldn't stand by and do nothing. The princess's life was worth fighting for. When he arrived, he was led to the room where she lay. The sight of her so fragile, so still, was almost too much for him to bear, but he didn't flinch. Had a mission, and he wouldn't fail. The royal healers stood around her, speaking in low tones. They had no answers, no hope. Jace watched them, his eyes scanning the room. Then his gaze fell on a blood transfusion machine. It was designed to heal the wounded, but this was different. The princess needed more than just technology. She needed something that only a rare few could offer. The idea came to Jace quickly, almost as if it had been planted in his mind. Had no idea what the effects would be, but in this moment of desperation, he couldn't think of anything else to do. He turned to the head healer. "Is there anything else you can do?" Jace asked, his voice calm but filled with urgency. The healer looked at him, shaking her head. "Nothing has worked. Her blood is failing, and without a match, she will die." Jace's heart raced as he considered the situation. He was just a human, and his blood had never been studied by their people. But he had to try. He knew that. If he didn't do something, they would lose the princess. "I'll donate my blood," Jace said, surprising even himself with the words. The healer's eyes widened. "Your blood? You are not Zarinthian. We do not know how your blood will react." With hers, but Jace wasn't listening to her doubts. He stepped forward, taking off his jacket and rolling up his sleeve. "It's the only chance we have," he said, his voice firm. The healer hesitated for only a moment before nodding. "Very well, we will try." As the transfusion began, Jace lay back on the bed, allowing the blood to flow. The Zarinthian healers watched in stunned silence. What Jace had done was unheard of. Never had a human given blood to a Zarinthian, let alone to a princess. But the blood exchange began to work. Slowly, they saw the princess's breathing become steadier. Her color began to return. The healing process was working, though no one could explain why. Jace stayed at her side, watching her closely. His heart pounded as he wondered if he had done the right thing. The Zarinthians were proud and private people. They would never accept his blood as a solution, would they? He wasn't sure how much longer he could stay in the palace, but for now, all he could do was wait. As the hours passed, The princess's condition improved. Her eyes fluttered open, and the first thing she saw was Jace, standing by her side. She blinked, confused. The bond that was forming between them was a mystery to both of them. But in that moment, Jace knew something extraordinary had happened. "Who?" the princess whispered, her voice weak but clear. "I'm Jace," the human warrior said softly. I donated my blood to you." She stared at him, still confused. "Why would you do that?" He smiled. "Because I couldn't just watch you die." The princess didn't have the strength to respond, but her eyes softened. Something had changed, and she could feel it deep within her. She didn't know what it meant yet, but she could sense the power of this human's blood within her. Her life had been saved, but at what cost? No one could have predicted the bond that would form between them. Simple act of kindness. It set the stage for something much greater than either of them could have imagined. The galaxy had no idea what was coming. The princess's recovery was nothing short of miraculous. When her eyes finally opened, she found herself surrounded by the very people who had once feared her death. The Zarinthian healers had all but given up, but now they were watching in awe as the princess slowly regained strength. Her breathing was steady, and her once pale skin was now showing signs of life. The effects of the blood transfusion were beyond their understanding. They couldn't deny that it was working. Jace, the human warrior, remained by her side, though he was unsure of what he had started. He was not a doctor or a healer, but he had done what he thought was right. The bond that had formed between him and the princess was confusing, but it felt stronger with every passing moment. When the princess finally spoke, her voice was faint but clear. "Where am I?" she asked, her voice trembling slightly. "You're in the royal palace of Zarinth," Jace replied softly, watching her closely. The princess turned her head slowly, taking in her surroundings. The room was dim, filled with quiet murmurs from the healers. Her eyes, though still a bit unfocused, met Jace's gaze. Something strange passed between them, a silent understanding. She had felt something different when she woke up, something she couldn't explain. There was a connection between them, and she couldn't ignore it. "What happened to me?" she asked, her gaze searching his face. "I should be dead." Jace hesitated, unsure how to explain the impossible. "You were dying. I gave you my blood." Her expression shifted as she processed his words. "Your blood?" She frowned, trying to make sense of it. "But you're human. Your blood is not like ours." "I know," Jace said quietly, his voice filled with uncertainty. "I didn't know if it would work, but I couldn't just stand there and watch you die. I thought maybe it would help." The princess stayed silent, staring at him with wide eyes. She felt something inside her, a strange warmth, a pull, as though their lives were now intertwined in some way. It was a feeling she couldn't explain, but it was undeniable. The blood of a human warrior was coursing through her veins, and she could feel it. The bond was growing stronger, and as much as she wanted to deny it, she could not. "What did your people think of this?" she asked, looking around the room at the Zarinthian healers, who had been watching quietly. "They don't understand." Jace admitted. "They've never seen anything like this. They can't deny that it worked. You're alive, and that's all that matters." The princess sat up slowly, feeling a sense of strength returning to her. The pain in her body had faded, and her mind felt clearer. But the strange connection with Jace remained, like a thread pulling her closer to him. Even though she barely knew him, the healers began to move toward her, their expressions a mixture of curiosity and disbelief. They had seen the princess fight many battles, but nothing had prepared them for what they were witnessing now. She was different, stronger. And yet there was something unexplainable about her recovery. "We must take a sample of your blood, Your Highness," one of the healers said, stepping forward cautiously. "This is unlike anything we've ever encountered." The princess nodded slowly, though her thoughts were elsewhere. She could feel Jace's presence nearby, and it made her uneasy. She was grateful for his sacrifice, but the bond between them was becoming too much to ignore. The more she thought about it, the more she realized that something had changed inside her, something deep and permanent, as the healers collected samples of her blood. The princess closed her eyes for a moment. She tried to push away the feelings, swirling inside her, but there was no escaping it. She felt connected to Jace in a way she couldn't explain. It wasn't just about the blood. It was more than that. She could sense his emotions, his thoughts, as though their minds were beginning to merge. "Are you all right?" Jace asked quietly, noticing the look of discomfort on her face. The princess opened her eyes, meeting his gaze. "I don't know," she said honestly. "This bond, it's strange. I can feel your thoughts. I can feel you inside me." Jace took a step back, startled by her words. "Inside you? How?" She shook her head, her voice uncertain. "Don't know. It's like your blood has become a part of me. Can't explain it, but I feel ... connected to you." Jace's heart raced. He had never heard of anything like this before. Human and alien minds didn't connect like this. It was impossible. Yet here he was, standing before the princess, feeling the weight of her words in his chest. He had given her his blood, but he never imagined it would lead to something like this. "Maybe it's temporary," Jace said, trying to reassure both her and himself. "Maybe the effects will fade over time." The princess nodded slowly, but deep down, she knew that what they were experiencing couldn't be erased so easily. The bond was real, and it wasn't going away, as the healers finished their work. And the room grew quieter. The princess looked at Jace, her mind still racing. "What now?" she asked softly. "I don't know," Jace admitted. "But I'm not leaving your side, not after everything you've been through." The princess smiled faintly, her heart beating faster as she felt the strength of their connection. "Once more, I don't think I want you to leave." Jace's eyes softened as he looked at her, feeling the weight of their bond growing stronger with every passing second. The princess had been saved, but now they both had to face the consequences of what that blood had created. Neither of them knew what the future held. But one thing was certain: their lives had changed forever, and as the princess lay back, her thoughts still swirling, she knew that the road ahead would not be easy. But for the first time in a long time, she felt hope. And for that, she had Jace to thank. The days following the princess's miraculous recovery were filled with uncertainty. Her people couldn't deny the change in her. Not only had her body healed, but something about her had shifted. She was no longer the same. The bond with Jace, though mysterious, was growing stronger with each passing moment. The princess felt it, and so did Jace. They couldn't explain it, but it was undeniable. Princess Alara spent most of her time in the royal gardens, walking slowly beneath the massive trees. The air smelled of sweet flowers, and the ground was soft beneath her feet. It was peaceful, yet her mind was filled with questions. She had once been a warrior, unafraid and strong. But now, she wasn't sure who she was anymore. The bond between her and Jace was powerful, but it also scared her. She didn't know if it was a gift or a curse. Jace was never far from her side. He didn't ask for this connection, but he wasn't going to leave her either. After all, he had given her his blood, and now they were linked in a way no one could have predicted. He had hoped the effects would wear off, that the bond would disappear with time, but it hadn't. In fact, it only grown stronger. One evening, as the stars began to fill the sky, Alara turned to Jace, her expression thoughtful. "Jace," she said, her voice soft but serious, "I can feel you. I can feel your every thought." Jace looked at her, his face a mixture of concern and confusion. "I know. I feel it too. It's like we're connected in a way that we shouldn't." Alara nodded, her eyes searching his. "What does this mean? Why is this happening?" "I don't know," Jace admitted, his voice tight. "I wish I had an answer, but we're in this together now." For a long moment, neither of them spoke. The connection between them was so deep, it was almost impossible to ignore. They could both sense each other's emotions, each other's fears and hopes. It was as if they were one, even though they had come from different worlds. As the silence stretched between them, Alara took a deep breath and turned away, gazing up at the stars. "I was supposed to be the leader of my people," she said. "Quietly, I was trained for battle, to fight for my people's freedom. But now I feel different. I feel weaker. I feel as though I no longer know who I am." Jace stepped closer, placing a hand on her shoulder. "You're not weak," he said firmly. "You're strong. You've always been strong. You fought for your people, and you've led them with honor. Alara turned her head slightly, meeting his gaze, but I've never faced anything like this. This bond, it changes everything. It changes me. I don't know what to do with it. Jace looked into her eyes, trying to find the right words. You don't have to do anything. Not yet. We take it one step at a time. We figure this out together. Alara let out a breath, trying to calm the swirl of emotions inside her. She wanted to believe him, but she couldn't shake the fear gnawing at her. The connection with Jace was deep, and it was growing stronger with every passing day. She couldn't tell if it was a blessing or a curse. The next few days passed in a blur of quiet contemplation. Alara and Jace spent more time together, each struggling to understand what was happening between them. The princess was still not fully recovered. The bond, while healing her physically, was also overwhelming her emotionally. She had never experienced such vulnerability before. The first time, she felt as if she needed someone. She had always been the leader, the one who gave strength to others. Now, it was as if she was the one who needed to be held up. But Jace, for all his strength, wasn't sure how to help her. He had never been in a situation like this. The thought of losing the princess, of seeing her suffer again, filled him with dread. It was strange how much he cared for her, and yet he didn't know where their bond would lead. He wasn't sure if it was real or just the effect of the blood transfusion. But as the days went on, he began to realize that it was more than just the blood. It was something far deeper than that. One evening, as the sun set and the stars began to twinkle in the sky, Alara stood alone in the garden, lost in thought. Jace watched her from a distance, his heart aching for her. She was a warrior at heart, but she was struggling, caught between the warrior she had been and the person she was becoming. He understood that better than anyone. He stepped toward her, his footsteps soft on the ground. Alara, he said, his voice gentle. You don't have to carry this burden alone. We're in this together. Alara turned to face him, her eyes filled with uncertainty. I don't know who I am anymore, Jace, she whispered. The princess, the warrior. They're all still a part of me, but this connection, it changes everything. Jace reached out, placing his hand gently on her arm. Don't have to be just one thing. It can be all of it. You're a warrior, a princess, and now you're someone who has experienced something no one else has. You're stronger than you realize. Alara's eyes filled with tears, but she didn't wipe them away. Instead, she looked at Jace, the connection between them more evident than ever. It was as if their minds were speaking to each other, and she could feel his words deep within her. She didn't know how to explain it, but in that moment, she felt a sense of peace she hadn't known before. Thank you, she whispered. Daisy smiled, his hand still resting on her arm. You're welcome. You don't have to face this alone, Alara. We're in this together. As the night settled around them, Alara realized that Jace was right. She didn't have to have all the answers right away. The journey ahead would be difficult, and the bond between them would change everything. But with Jace by her side, she knew that, together, they could face whatever came next. And as the stars shimmered above them, she couldn't help but feel that, despite all the uncertainty, something powerful had just begun. The days continued to pass, and the connection between Princess Alara and Jace only deepened. Though the bond was strange and new, it was undeniable. Alara still struggled with her place in the galaxy. She had been a warrior, a princess, and now she was something else, something she couldn't yet define. But with Jace by her side, she found a sense of strength she had never known before. She knew, though, that the road ahead was not going to be easy. Zarinth, once a planet of peace, was now on the brink of war. Alara's people were restless. The rebellion had been growing in the shadows, and now it was ready to reveal itself. There were those who wanted to overthrow the royal family, believing that Alara's new connection with Jace was a weakness. These rebels saw an opportunity to seize power, and they would stop at nothing to take it. The princess knew it was only a matter of time before the rebellion would strike. She couldn't allow her people to fall into chaos, but she also couldn't ignore the truth. There were those who would never accept the bond between her and Jace. The Zarinthians were proud and ancient, and a union with a human was something they couldn't easily accept. The whispers of dissent had already begun. Jace, on the other hand, could sense the growing unrest among the people. He had seen the look in the eyes of the royal guards, the quiet murmurs among the palace staff. They were watching him, waiting for him to fail. He knew that the rebellion would not be silenced for long, and he didn't want to put Alara in any more danger. But he had sworn to protect her, and that was a promise he intended to keep. One evening, as they sat together in the royal gardens, Alara spoke quietly, her voice heavy with concern. "Jace, I fear what's coming. The rebellion is growing stronger, and the longer we wait, the more dangerous it becomes." Jace looked at her, his expression grim. "I know. The people are restless. They fear what they don't understand, and they don't understand us." Alara stood up, her hands clenched at her sides. "They don't understand me. They don't understand the bond between us. But it's more than that. It's a fear of change, of the unknown. The rebellion isn't just about my rule, it's about everything that is different now. They want to return to the old ways, the old traditions. But those ways are what led us to war in the first place." Jace stood as well, walking toward her. "The galaxy isn't the same as it was before, but the rules are changing, and some people are afraid of that, but they don't have to fight. They don't have to destroy everything." Alara turned to face him, her eyes filled with determination. "I can't let them tear this planet apart. I can't let my people fall into darkness. I must fight, Jace. I must lead them." Jace stepped forward, his voice soft but firm. "And you will, but not alone. I'm with you, Alara. I always will be." Just as Alara opened her mouth to respond, there was a sudden movement in the shadows. A small group of Zarinthian soldiers emerged from the darkness, their weapons drawn. They were loyal to the royal family, but their faces were filled with worry. "We have to go, Your Highness," one of them said urgently. "The rebellion is moving faster than we thought. We've been ordered to retreat to the royal vaults. It's the safest place on the planet." Alara looked at the soldiers, her heart racing. "But the people need me. I can't hide. I can't run away." One of the soldiers stepped forward, his voice low. "The people need you alive. Can't win a war if you're not there to lead us. Please, Your Highness. We have to move now." Jace looked at Alara, his eyes filled with a mix of concern and resolve. "He's right. We have to go. We'll find a way to stop the rebellion together, but not like this, not without your life to protect." Alara hesitated for a moment, but then she nodded. She knew that they were right. The rebellion wasn't just about her, it was about her people. She couldn't allow her people to suffer because of her stubbornness. She followed the soldiers, with Jace by her side, as they made their way to the royal vaults. The vaults were hidden deep beneath the palace, a series of secret passages that led to a massive underground chamber. Alara had never seen them before, but she knew that this was the place where the last line of defense would stand. The vaults were protected by the best warriors, and only those loyal to the royal family were allowed inside as they entered the vault. Alara turned to Jace. "I don't want to hide, Jace. I don't want to be protected. I want to fight." "No," Jace said softly, "but for now, we have to be smart. You're not alone in this. We'll find a way to stop the rebellion. We'll stop them together." Alara looked around at the soldiers who were taking positions around the vault. "How?" she asked, her voice barely a whisper. "How can we stop them if they've already taken control of the people's hearts?" Jace placed a hand on her shoulder, his voice full of determination. "We show them that there is a better way. We show them that we're stronger together, and we remind them that peace is worth fighting for." For the first time in days, Alara felt a spark of hope. Maybe it wasn't too late. Maybe, with Jace by her side, she could turn the tide. She wasn't just a princess or a warrior anymore. She was something more. And she would fight for her people no matter the cost. As the vault doors closed behind them, Alara made a silent vow. The rebellion might have the power to divide her people, but it would not have the power to break her, not as long as she had Jason, not as long as she had the strength to lead. The days in the royal vault were long and tense. Alara could feel the weight of the situation pressing down on her with every passing hour. The rebellion was growing stronger, and it seemed like the walls were closing in. Her people, once loyal to the crown, were now divided. Some wanted peace, while others wanted change at any cost, even if it meant bloodshed. Alara had always known that leadership wasn't easy, but this was different. The stakes were higher than ever. Jace stood by her side, offering support. In every way he could. He had become more than just a protector. He had become her confidant. The bond between them, once born of desperation, had now turned into something deeper, something more. Alara couldn't explain it, but she knew that their connection was something that couldn't be broken. "We can't hide forever," Alara said. One evening, her voice filled with quiet resolve. "If we wait too long, it will be too late. The rebellion will overtake us." Jace looked at her, his eyes filled with determination. "I know, but we have to be careful. We need a plan, Alara. We can't rush into battle without knowing what we're up against." Alara nodded, but the frustration was clear on her face. "I don't want to hide in these vaults any longer. My people need me. I need to show them that I'm still there. Leader, that I haven't abandoned them." "I understand," Jace said softly, his voice full of understanding. "But we can't act on emotion. We have to think carefully." The hours turned into days, and the tension only grew. Alara's mind raced, trying to come up with a solution. But the weight of the rebellion and the pressure of the throne made it harder and harder to think clearly. She could hear whispers from the soldiers who had been assigned to protect them. Some were loyal, but others were unsure. They didn't understand the bond between Alara and Jace, and they didn't know what to make of the situation. Why the unrest was spreading. It wasn't long before Alara's worst fears were realized. One night, just as the vault doors were closing and the guards were settling in for the night, one of the soldiers approached her. His face was shadowed, his eyes filled with uncertainty. "Your Highness," the soldier said in a low voice, "there's something you need to know." Alara turned to him, her heart suddenly pounding in her chest. "What is it?" The soldier hesitated for a moment before speaking. "There's a traitor among us, someone who's been working with the rebellion. Someone close to the royal family." Alara's breath caught in her throat. "A traitor? Who?" "Can't say for sure," the soldier replied, "but I've heard whispers. I've seen people speaking in secret. The rebellion is getting closer, and someone inside the palace is helping them." Alara's mind raced. Who could it be? Who would betray the royal family? The soldier lowered his voice even more. "I don't know, Your Highness, but you need to be careful. Trust no one, not even your closest allies." Jace, who had been standing nearby, stepped forward. "Whoever is behind this, we'll find them. We can't let them destroy everything we've worked for." Alara nodded, her thoughts spinning. A traitor. How could someone in her inner circle betray her like this? The weight of the revelation hung heavy in the air. She had always trusted her people, but now she realized that trust could be a dangerous thing. Later that night, as Alara lay in her bed, her mind continued to race. She thought of the rebellion and the traitor who had infiltrated her ranks. She thought of the trust she had placed in those around her. Could it really be someone she had trusted all along? She had to find out who it was. The fate of her people depended on it. The next morning, Alara gathered her closest allies, those she still trusted, and began to question them one by one. The process was slow and methodical, and Alara could feel the strain in her chest with every question. She had never suspected anyone of betrayal before, but now suspicion was everywhere. It wasn't long before her fears were confirmed. One of her most trusted advisors, a high-ranking officer named Daylon, was revealed to have been working with the rebels. Alara's heart sank as she learned of his treachery. He'd been passing information to the rebellion, feeding them the plans for the royal defenses and helping them coordinate their attacks. All along, he had been pretending to be loyal while secretly plotting her downfall. "Why?" Alara demanded, her voice shaking with anger and disbelief. "Why would you betray me? We trusted you." Daylon looked down, his face filled with shame. "I had no choice, Your Highness. The rebellion promised me power. They promised me a new world. One where the Zaranthians would no longer be controlled by the royal family. I wanted that change. I thought the bond between you and the human warrior was a sign of your failure, Alara's fists clenched at her sides. "You don't understand. This is about more than power. This is about the survival of our people. You've put everything. We've fought for at risk. You've betrayed us all." Dalen lowered his head, unable to meet her gaze. "I'm sorry, Princess. I didn't know what else to do." Alara turned away, her heart heavy with the weight of the betrayal. She had trusted Dalen, and now he had put them all in danger. But she knew what had to be done. She couldn't let the rebellion win. She couldn't let Dalen's actions destroy everything her family had built. "Lock him up," Alara ordered, her voice cold and steady, "and prepare for battle. We fight now, before it's too late." Jace stepped forward, his eyes filled with concern. "Are you sure you're ready for this, Alara? Rebellion is stronger than we thought." "I have no choice," she said, her voice firm. "I will not let this planet fall into chaos. We fight for the future of the Zarinthians and for the future of the galaxy." With that, Alara took a deep breath and turned toward the unknown future. The rebellion was on the move, and they were going to make their stand. The air inside the royal vaults was thick with tension. Alara stood at the front, staring at the map spread across the table. Her hand rested on the edge, her fingers lightly brushing over the drawn lines, the paths leading to key areas of the palace. Her heart raced with anticipation, but she forced herself to stay calm. The rebellion was here, and it was time to make a stand. Jace stood beside her, his eyes scanning the room. He could feel the weight of the situation pressing on both of them. They had come so far, and now they had to finish what they had started. The princess had been through so much already, and yet this battle would decide the fate of Zarinth. If they lost, everything they had worked for would be gone. "Alara," just said softly, turning to face her, "are you sure about this? We're outnumbered. The rebellion has the support of the people, and they know the palace better than anyone." Alara looked up at him, her gaze filled with resolve. "I have no choice, Jace. I can't hide forever. My people need me. We've been preparing for this moment. We will fight for the future of Zaranth, and we won't let anyone take that away." Jace nodded. There was a fire in her eyes that he hadn't seen in a long time. She was ready to fight for her kingdom, and he would stand by her side no matter what. The rebellion had grown stronger. Over the past few weeks, they had taken control of several key areas of the city, and the royal palace was the last symbol of authority. If they could hold the palace, they would win the war. But Alara and Jace were determined to stop them. "Have to take back the throne room," Alara said, her voice firm. "It's the heart of the palace. If we lose that, we lose everything." Jace agreed. "We'll have to be quick and careful. We'll need to cut off their support and take control of the throne room before they can reinforce their position." Turned to the soldiers gathered in the vault with them. She had already sent word to the loyal forces, and they were ready. They had gathered in secret, prepared to face the rebellion head-on. There was no turning back now. "Are we ready?" Alara asked, her voice strong and clear. The soldiers nodded, each of them prepared for the fight ahead. They were loyal, and they trusted her. Together, they would fight to protect their home. "We are ready, Your Highness," one of the soldiers said. Alara looked around the room at her people, the ones who had stayed by her side through everything. "Then let's go. We fight for Zarinth." As they moved through the dark corridors of the palace, the sound of distant clashes echoed through the halls. The battle had already begun. The rebellion was making its move. But Alara's forces were ready. Jace walked beside Alara, his hand resting on the hilt of his sword. He could feel the tension in the air, the weight of the decision they had made. There was no turning back now. The rebellion had to be stopped. Alara was the key to that victory. As they reached the throne room, Alara's heart pounded in her chest. She could feel the presence of the rebels just beyond the door. The sound of shouting and the clash of weapons filled the air. She knew that this was the moment that would define her reign. With a sharp nod, she motioned for the soldiers to move in. The door burst open, and the battle began. The rebellion was waiting, their weapons drawn, their faces filled with anger and defiance. But Alara and her loyal soldiers were ready. They fought with everything they had, with the strength of their convictions pushing them forward. Jace fought at Alara's side, his sword flashing in the light as he took down enemy after enemy. He had never fought for a cause this important, but for Alara, he would give everything. They moved together as one, each of them anticipating the other's moves, working as a seamless unit. As the battle raged on, Alara's mind was focused. She could feel the bond with Jace, stronger than ever. It wasn't just about the blood they shared anymore. It was something more, something deeper. They were fighting for their people, for each other, and for the future of Zarinth, the rebellion. Leader, a man named Raxer, stood at the far end of the throne room, watching the battle unfold. He was tall, his face hard and unyielding. His people were losing, but he wasn't ready to admit defeat. "Stop them," Raxar shouted to his soldiers, his voice cutting through the noise. "We cannot lose the throne." But Alara was already there, moving with purpose, toward him. She knew that Raxar was the key to ending this fight. If they could defeat him, the rebellion would lose its leader, and their will to fight would crumble. With a battle cry, Alara charged at Raxar, her sword raised high. The sound of metal clashing against metal echoed through the room as they met in the middle. For a moment, there was only the sound of their struggle, their swords meeting in fierce combat. "You think you can defeat me, princess?" Raxar sneered. His eyes filled with hatred. "I'm not just a princess," Alara said through gritted teeth. "I'm the future of Zarinth." With a swift movement, she disarmed him, knocking his sword to the ground. Raxar fell to his knees, his face a mixture of shock and disbelief. "It's over," Alara said, her voice calm but firm. "Your rebellion ends now." As Raxar was taken into custody, the remaining rebels, seeing their leader defeated, began to surrender. The battle was won. Zarinth had been saved. Exhausted but victorious, Alara stood in the throne room, surrounded by her loyal soldiers. The rebellion had been crushed, but the real battle had been within her. She had faced her fears, and now she was stronger than ever. Jace approached her, his face bruised but filled with pride. "You did it," he said softly. Alara turned to him, her eyes filled with gratitude. "We did it, together." And as they stood there, side by side, Alara knew that the bond between them was unbreakable. They had fought for Zarinth, for their people, and for each other. And in the end, they had won.